The thing, too, that I haven't thought about until you started walking through that scenario is, if you see a player and you say, okay, they've got 7 starters coming back, and, they're homegrown kids from that community, and you've seen them, you can go back and you can check the previous years, but all of a sudden, to me, a player, he's been in the system for 3 years, or he's been in the system for 4 years, or his whole time, as opposed to a player that's just come into that system.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different mindset as far as your preparation really for,
competition.
Just from a competitive standpoint, but from a fairness standpoint and trying to keep a level playing field. The biggest thing is, to me, is if you see a bunch of T's on a roster. If you see a roster full of T's, and the bottom line is, you and William were talking before we started about the colleges, how they're doing roster management. And so what happens is, I heard a college coach, he made this comment. He said, if we're not recruiting players that are getting poached, we're not recruiting players good enough to get to win. If we're recruiting players, if we're recruiting those players, then they're going to get poached in 2 years, and we start all over. And so that's the college model. The college model is it's roster management, okay? And so we just don't. Do we want to mirror that model in high school? Do we want? Here's what it all comes down to: this. If you look at our mission statement, it says education through athletics. Well, what exactly does that mean? Well, here's what that means. When a player enters your athletic program, for us, a player enters our athletic program in the 3rd grade. We have core values in our 3rd through 6th grade. We have core values in the 7th through 9th, and we have core values in our varsity. The core values, there's a couple of things that are a strand that remains the same throughout. There's some that are unique to whatever stage of life that they're in. But at the end of the day, we're trying to use athletics to instill in them values that are going to benefit them and they can use for the rest of their life. And so that's totally different than the college game. I mean, it's totally different than college athletics. That model would not work in college athletics. If somebody in college said, we're going to use that model and we're going to compete with that model, you wouldn't last 2 years. And it would be a complete and total failure, because you're competing with people who are managing and recreating their roster every single year, So let's go to high school athletics. So now in high school athletics, if you see a bunch of those T's, that means that more than likely, rather than using the players from your community to construct your roster, you're basically involved in roster management every year. If you see, and there's a number when you cross this threshold, and we know what the number is, but when you cross this threshold, you're involved in roster management. Well, it's true in high school too.
Yeah.
In high school, if you've got a team that is committed to education through athletics, and they compete against a team that is involved in roster management, the outcome is very, very predictable.
You went back to say we chart over the years that we play a team. All right, this kid's a sophomore. He got to play this year. I can reasonably expect that he will be a starter at that position the following year. Little concerning when you see a team you play, say, has 6 seniors on the offense. You think, well, next year they'll have to replace a little over half of their starting offense. And then here comes some names in there that have been at other schools, and they're a junior or senior as well. Somehow that guy ended up at that school. Now they got a new left tackle and got a new quarterback.